Good reading, ladies and manager. No, it's not the perfect start, but it was a start nonetheless. Give me a moment to clickety-clack, clickety-clack, and I shall be with you all. Good morning, Lazy Comet. Hope you're doing well today. Or as well as can be. Think that's everything. Oh, wait, no. We need the Twitch URL. Good morning, Lord Warpix. Hope you're doing well as well. Clickety-clack, clickety-clack. I think that's that. QP link. Alrighty. Clickety-clack, clickety-clack. Clickety-clack. Good morning, Rev 9886. I am doing this live! Yes, I am doing this live. Well, welcome, Rev. Welcome to the madhouse. We have a sleeping / grumpy dog. He's grumpy because I moved and I woke him up. Clickety-clack, clickety-clack. Clickety-clack. Okay. I think that's enough messing around. Putting the screens back where they belong. Und da. Chat's not working. Of course the chat's not working. By chat's not working, I mean the combined chat. On my side's not working. It's working on the stream, but not in... There we go. Am I coming through clearer now? I should be. Good morning, Arop. Hope you're doing well. Well, morning, day, evening, afternoon, whatever it may be for you. Just dealing with technical difficulties, which is, every stream. Ooh, oh, somebody wants to talk to me. Rick. I'll do my best to remember that, Rick. just trying to get the combined chat working on my side. Normally just need to wait a couple minutes. But while I wait, I'll drink some coffee. Oh yeah, that's hot. Strangely enough. So how is everyone? Looking forward to summer? Looking forward to winter, depending on where you are? There we go. Combined chat is now working on my side. Coolie doody. I've just drunk a litre and a half of water, so I'm just letting that settle before I start narrating. Full stomach means compressed diaphragm. So you can't take as deep of a breath if you have a full stomach. Well, that's good. That's good. Happy birthday to your brother. Indiana. Awesome. I know it's an American state, but I do not immediately recognize where in the map it is. In my mind, it's somewhere along the middle. But I could be completely wrong. My geology was never that good. Got a snoring dog. Snoring, I tell you. Turn the music up. I do have music playing. Not sure why it's not coming through. There we go. There we go. Some background music so that the silence isn't so jarring. Good morning, Phoenix. Hope you're doing well. Fair enough, Rev. Fair enough. We will be moving into the story shortly. Like I said, just waiting for some water to settle, knocking off some gunk from the vocal cords so that they can perform. And then we can do the voice. That's awesome, Phoenix. 6 hours sleep, that's plenty. Survived most of my life off of that. Although, 8 hours is still better. Yeah, I have that a lot too, Red. What was it? 16, 17, I started with insomnia. Still have it. Need to take pills, and even those don't help some nights. But unfortunately, with the job I have, I need to try to get the 8 hours. So that the voice does voice things. So that my surgeon is happy. Yes, cats do that. I think they do that to taunt you. Little doggy snores. I wonder if we've got a cat as here. The cat sleeps behind the laptop, the dog sleeps in the lap. In the world of healthy voices, you're never actually allowed to cough. You always have to, and even then you're not allowed to clear your throat. It's too hard, you have to breathe. So, like fucking furball. That is the correct way to clear your throat, is to be like a furball. My surgeon wonders why the hell I stare at him like he's an idiot. He's not, obviously. But it's like, you want me to cough up a furball every time I want to clear my throat. Fair enough, Red Vex. Fair enough. If I had catnip in my pocket, I wouldn't have a leg. So, how addicted my cat is to, well, my wife's cat. I keep calling it my wife's cat, but it thinks that it's my cat. But we all know that cats are always wrong. Give you a pat down before the CAT scan and after the CAT scan. As long as it's a pat down and not a cavity search, you should be fine. Alright, so the first 5 chapters of Billy Bob are decently long. Well, the first 2, 3, all 20 minutes plus. Then it kind of breaks down to about 15 minutes. That's true enough. Coffee. Alright. I think I'll start the first chapter. We'll see how things go. Billy Bob. Well, I mean, our cat is definitely, both of our cats. Depends on who has the treats. Well, quite honestly, as to who is the best owner. Alrighty, alright. On to the story. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this most glorious ReTFOS, where I'm going to take Billy Bob Space Trucker and update it to modern audio standards. Now, you may be wondering why this is on the main channel. It's because it's a ReTFOS, and this was originally on the main channel, so I think it is poetic. Anyway, this is Billy Bob Space Trucker, written by Regal Legal Eagle. P.S. Don't forget to head over there and give it a big update. P.S. Don't forget to head over and give it a very big update. Anyways, on to the story. Everything's going as well as can be, Redvex. As well as can be. Could it be better? Sure. Could it be worse? Also sure. Billy Bob gave a grunt as he left the range of the last human FTL music station in his sector. Reaching out, he stabbed the entertainment console with a finger to turn off that damned Xeno shit before it gave him a headache. Not that the click-clack bullshit. Not before it gave him a headache. None of that click-clack bullcrap for him. Hurt his ears. Thinking it over, he turned his entertainment console over to his private collection. Round, round, I forgot about all the music stuff. Round, round, I get around. He grinned as the Beach Boys filled his cockpit. Real human music is what this was. Back when times were simple, and they only had to worry about nukes and commies. He had a whole collection of pre-contact music that he liked to play on his long-haul routes. Most Xenos hauled cargo in massive ships with crews of around 50. They needed the companionship and security of traveling in bigger groups. Plus, they needed someone to grow food, tend to the sick, and sing songs, all that sort of thing. They tended to freak out if they didn't have someone to fill each job position. But humans, well, humans didn't mind strapping themselves to a giant rocket and firing off with the more mid-sized cargo bay, all on their own. Being alone didn't scare humans as much as it did all those Xenos. Plus, there was damn good money being the only one to take the extra long routes out of the isolated colonies that didn't need a whole atlas worth of cargo. The Xenos had some sort of fancy title for this sort of position, but Billy Bob knew just what he was. All humans called this sort of job the same thing. It was a job as old as internal combustion, just now in space. He was Billy Bob, Space Trucker. Billy Bob was good at his job. He'd taken it up after a tour of service in the Navy as a bomber. Knowing how Xenos hated being isolated, humans had realized they didn't scan for small ships, and the concept of long-range fighter bombers with single pilots was completely foreign to them. Taking advantage of this, humanity created whole squadrons of the things to terrorize core systems while their fleet or capital ships mostly fought on the defensive in their own territory. This meant humans were hard to fight on traditional Xeno terms. Instead of big capital ships battles, to decide the fate of wars, they just sat around and defended their outer colonies, while those hard-to-detect squadrons of fighter bombers devastated morale back home. Of course, humans could trounce most militaries once they landed anyway. A nice side effect from evolving on a high-gravity death world meant most Xenos didn't stand a chance against them face-to-face. But that was mostly frowned upon by the Galactic Peace Corps. They wanted the border conflicts to take place in space and involve as little actual invasion as possible, and humanity was trying to join peacefully, rather than forcefully. Most people didn't want humans to be viewed as big mean bullies, but Billy Bob didn't mind being a bully now and then. Wars had died down since humanity had established their borders, and the Navy didn't need those fighter bombers as much as patrol craft, so Billy Bob had taken his severance pay with an honorable discharge and bought himself a Longhorn, made back home on terra fucking firma. Then he signed up with a freight line and got to trucking. Then he signed up with a freight line and got trucking. In space, his only companion was the long space lanes ahead, fellow space truckers on FTL prox bands, and of course, Mittens. Mittens was a Martian marauder genetically engineered to handle pests on the first world colony. Mittens was a Martian marauder genetically engineered to handle pests on the first off-world colony he was about. Punctuation is Mittens a bit iffy. This is Regal Eagle's first story, so it's understandable. Mittens was a Martian marauder genetically engineered to handle pests on the first off-world colony. He was as big as an old Earth bobcat. His fur was as dusty red and bluish stripes, but white paws, hence the name. He was scarred. He was scarred all over from his many battles on the streets of Mars as a youth, before shelter had found him. Billy Bob had picked him up from the shelter, because he liked the look of the cat, and he knew that an omnivore keeping a carnivore as a pet scared the crap out of most Xenos. Billy Bob liked dogs too, but they needed more space, and then they had... but they needed more space than he had in his Longhorn, and they'd yet to breed a dog that could learn to do its business in a space toilet and flush after. Currently, he had a cargo bay full of standard agri-colony supplies and 3 space days to get there. He knew they weren't space days, but he hated the stupid Xeno terms for this kind of crap. He wasn't some Diplo-core nerd. He was a space trucker. He just added space in front of the traditional human terms. He just added space in front of the traditional human terms, and that was good enough for him. Soon enough, though, his gut began to rumble, and he sighed. I could use a quick bite. Good morning, Joseph. Hope you're doing well. I could use a quick bite. How about you, Mittens? The cat was sleeping in the co-pilot chair and yawned, but didn't contribute to the conversation. Ah, well, I'm going to stretch my legs, you lazy furball. The ship shuddered as he began to peel off from the main FTL lane and spin down his engines as he moved out of the FTL lane. Soon he had pulled up to the refueling station. His Longhorn dwarfed the other massive cargo ships in Atlas. Paying the minor docking fee, he unfastened his harness and hauled his growing beer gut out of the pilot's chair. He ran a hand over his belly for a moment as he noted he needed to exercise more regularly now that he wasn't on a military diet. Shrugging it off, he walked back through his small cabin of his ship and stepped. Shrugging it off, he walked back through the small cabin of his ship and stepped into the airlock. He ached for a smoke, but knew the rules against air toxins were strictly enforced. Pathetic Xenos couldn't handle a little tobacco smoke. But he shrugged it off. But he shrugged it off and waited for the airlock to cycle. He was greeted with stale canned air that smelled of dirty Xenos. And FTL fuel had begun. And FTL fuel as he began to work. He was greeted with the stale canned air that smelled of dirty Xenos and FTL fuel as he began the walk along the gantry towards the station central. His boots, jeans, belt buckle, and plaid shirt were all essentially against the standard Xenos norms of clothing. Everything preferred pressure suits or multi-function harnesses. Well, that wasn't his style. So he adjusted his hat with a human flag next to the good old stars and stripes and walked on. So he adjusted his hat with the human flag next to the good old stars and stripes on it and walked on. Most stations like this had the same layout. They consisted of a central hub with arms for cargo haulers at the dock at, a restaurant and other entertainments Most stations like this had the same layout. They consisted of a central hub with arms for cargo haulers to dock at, and restaurants and other entertainment centers for lonely cargo crew to have some fun at. He had to watch his step in the lowered gravity unless he wanted to go jumping over everyone's head and freak everyone out. So he had to take a slow, long stride gait, noting the places with sealed environments for various atmospheric needs. He found a dinner plate. Noting the places with sealed environments for various atmospheric needs. He found a dinner that looked... He found a diner that looked almost... He found a diner that looked empty enough. He groaned at the sight of the chairs, though. They were all those ergonomic Xeno styles. Various atmospheric needs. That coffee is fighting back. He found a diner that looked empty, though. He found a diner that looked empty enough. He groaned at the sight of the chairs, though. They were all those ergonomic Xeno styles. He just wanted a place for his butt and a back to lean against, damn it. He looked over the options of furniture and approached the counter. Picking one that looked like you, he tried to sit on it sideways first, but it was too wide to comfortably straddle. Then he tried to sit in it with his arms. Then he tried to sit in it with the arms of you against his doogie. Then, when he tried to sit in it with the arms of you against his... Guessing that's back. Then when he tried to sit in it with his arms of the... Then when he tried to sit in it with the arms of the U against his back, he found it too tight. While he tried this, the guy behind the counter, some sort of six-armed space frog, just waited and watched. Do you have a crate or something? The creature looked a bit confused. A crate of what? Just a crate. Just like a crate. Got some crates of cans in the back. Billy Bob got up, walked past the space frog and into the kitchen, where some more surprised-looking space frogs were standing around. Hey, wait. Just going to be a minute. He found one of the shiny metal boxes and lifted it up, walking back out with it as a pace barrier. Ah, that makes more sense. Good morning, Shadow Aura. Hope you're doing well. Hey, wait. With some more surprised-looking space. Got some crates of cans in the back. Do you have a crate? Well, he tried this. Then when he tried to sit in it. Then when he tried to sit in it with the arms of the U against his arms, he found it too tight. Walking back out. There's awesome, Shadow, and it's early writing. I'll update while I'm here. Because we're going to the comments. One of the only times I actually go into the comments on stories. Just going to be a minute. Just going to be a minute. He found one of the shiny metal boxes and lifted it up, walking back out with it as a share. He found one of the shiny metal boxes and lifted it up, walking back out with it as the space frog's eyes got even wider. Then he set it down next to the counter and sat on it. Do you know how heavy that thing is? High gravity home planet. Oh, no wonder you're so ugly. You're not pretty yourself, fella. I've got 6 wives, pal. I'm gorgeous. Billy Bob eyed the creature in front of him and figured there was no counting for taste. Well, fine. Do you have meat? The creature shuddered for a moment. 3 bulbous sacs along the blue neck, expanding for a moment. A carnivore, huh? Omnivore, thank you very much. Do you have anything resembling bacon and eggs? He waited for the creature's implants to translate the term before he saw the blue sacks turn a little green. "That's disgustingly barbaric." Billy Bob let out a sigh. "How about protein mush and space pancakes?" It had taken Billy Bob ages to tweak his translator to understand Castor. It had taken Billy Bob ages to tweak his translator to understand custom inputs just the way he liked. Protein mush would translate, but space pancakes wouldn't normally. But he'd been damned if he'd bothered to remember the Xeno term for those green flapjack-type things. "Yes, that we have." "And butter?" It was a long shot. Even the translator struggled to convey the term. "Spreadable animal fat." "You know what? Never mind. How about space maple syrup?" "Yes, we have sugar tar." That's a way to pronounce it. Yes, we have sugar tar." "Close enough. Coffee?" A blank face with a response. "Crap, I mean space coffee." "Dear religious figure, you'd want to consume some of that stuff in liquid form." "Yes. Is that not normal?"
"No. Combat stimulants are not normal to consume as a drink."
"Crap. I guess this place hasn't visited. I guess this place hasn't had a visit from the Diplo Corps yet, then. Do you guys have anything with caffeine in it?" The creature looked at him warily.
"We keep some, space tea for visiting space foxes."
He meant the Tatari, but Billy Bob thought they looked like space foxes, and, as such, made each translator use the term. "Oh, good. Well, bring me some boiling water and 3 bags of that, and then another full glass of ice about this big." He held up his hands to show.
"Now you coming out of a hibernation cycle? That's an absurd amount of liquid."
"We don't hibernate. We just dance." "We're just dense." The frog muttered something about accuracy of statement, then spoke up.
"Look, do you have the currency to pay for this?"
Yeah. He pulled out He pulled a bill out of his pocket and slapped it on the table.
"What's that?"
Billy Bob looked down. First world presidents. Billy Bob looked down at the first world president Schwarzenegger's face. "Sorry, wrong country. Sorry, wrong currency." He tucked the bill back into a pocket and instead pulled out a small black box. "Galactic trade cubes work here, right?"
"They work everywhere."
"So I hear." The frog touched the box to let it connect with the implant, and after a soft beep from the machine, set about making Billy Bob his food. Once the frog carefully brought over the pot of boiling water, while using a thermal glove, Billy Bob quickly dumped the 3 bags of weak-ass space tea into it and began to brew something close to green tea. Protein mush and space pancakes weren't all that bad. In reality, protein mush was very similar to scrambled eggs, just in need of a load of salt and pepper, which no one kept in large quantities. Soon enough, the frog came back with a plate of protein mush and space pancakes. Green flapjacks covered in what caramel-like sugar tar. Green flapjacks covered in that caramel-like sugar tar, which wasn't really a bad name, but he still preferred space maple syrup. He reached down to holster his belt. He reached down to the holster in his belt, pulling free a bottle of real Mexican pepper sauce. Pulling free a bottle of real Mexican pepper sauce and poured some on the bush. When the frog squinted and leaned in, he held up his hand. "Whoa there, pal. The stuff has capsaicin in it." The frog backed up, looking horrified.
You consume chemical weapons?"
"Just for flavor." The frog decided to move down the counter and clean a section off it. and clean a section of it far off from Billy. And clean a section of it far away from Billy Bob. He ate in peace, pouring some of the brewed tea into a glass of ice to cool it down and drink it as iced tea. The place was quiet, which suited him just fine. But soon there was another guest. Billy Bob looked over as it slipped its easy. Billy Bob looked over at it. Billy Bob looked over as it slipped easily into one of the ergonomic Xeno chairs. It was fairly tall, about a half-foot over his head. He refused to use magic, even in space. Fairly slim, but not outrageously so. He was wearing some sort of black cloak and what looked like a survival... It was wearing some sort of black cloak and what looked like a survival suit beneath it. It was a bipedal humanoid, sported four long arms instead of two. Its face was shrouded in the hood of the cloak, all mysterious-like. The frog seemed extra cautious with this visitor, perhaps because two unusual clients at once didn't bode well for him. Perhaps because two unusual clients at once didn't bode well to him. They had a quiet conversation, ending with the frog looking down the way of Billy Bob. The figure waited for the frog to bring it a small glass of fruit drink, make that space fruit drink, and then rose from the seat, seeming to drift rather than walk towards Billy Bob. It took a seat next to him as he ate. "You come from a death world," the voice purred out, all light and airy. He liked her already. Of course, he couldn't be sure it was a female, but the voice and figure seemed feminine to him, so why not? "Sure do."
"What classification?"
"I'm told the galactic standards are grade 5 water." Grade 5. I'm told the galactic standards are... Nope. I'm told the galactic standards are grade 5 water, oxygen standard, super heavy gravity, and a class 8 hostility. The figure leaned back at that.
"Class 8 hostility and super heavy?"
Yep. He took a bite of his eggs. Bush.
"What rank are you on your ship?"
That made him curious. "Captain."
"No support crew with you?"
"No support crew. I fly and fix the ship on my own." That usually surprised most Xenos, and this one seemed a little surprised as well, since it was quiet. "You're a space trucker."
"A what?"
"I don't like the galactic term. That's what my people call it. My whole cargo around space for contracts."
"On your own?"
"I have a pet."
"Oh."
Yep. 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 Nope. Yep. He figured she was wondering what it was, but he decided that it was best not to scare her.
"Are you taking on new cargo?"
"In the middle of a contract, full cargo, hold, I'm afraid."
"What about passengers?"
"I've got a 2-person cabin, so no. I don't have the facilities to transport 20 or 30 of your kind."
"I'm alone."
That actually caught him by surprise. Almost all civilized spacefaring species had been prey on their home planets. They needed company and familiar beings nearby, or they'd start to freak out. That was the very reason humans developed their fighter-bomber strategy. From what they'd seen, the concept of frontiersmen and wandering explorers and space truckers was foreign to them. Solitude terrified them, and that generally drove them insane. Solitude terrified them, and then generally drove them insane. Looks like the diplomatic corps had missed a species. "What gravity are you okay with?"
"Galactic standard."
"Sleep cycles? Eating?"
3 space hours sleep."
"Eating?"
3 space hours of sleep for 6 space hours active.
Night standard omnivore. Cat naps and snacks, huh?"
"I don't know what that means."
"Never mind. Where do you need to go, and when?"
"I need to reach Galactic Capital Planet before the end of the space month."
"The hell's... That's a hell of a way to go. My species isn't a member of species." "That's a hell of a way to go. My species isn't even a member species yet. I'm not sure they'd let me go that far."
"I have diplomatic connections."
"Well, I don't know. It seems like more effort than it's worth."
The figure looked ready to go on when he heard the frog gasp as some more figures entered the room.
Billy Bob looked over and arched a brow. "These..." "No, excuse me." These he was going to call giant, horrible space crab bugs. They had 6 lower legs, 2 upper arms, and 2 twitching mandibles along a pointed 4-eyed face with antennae. It was covered in some sort of jagged purple-black exoskeleton, and looked to be dripping space goo. Each had some sort of large, high-powered looking weapon in their claw-like upper arms, and a targeting computer over the 2 of their eyes. Humans, so far, were unique in the universe for their ability to compute depth and speed in their heads. Something as simple as playing catch was nearly impossible for species without computer assistance. The Spectre lady moved behind him, and he realized that he was being dragged into something he didn't understand. And he didn't like that. "You!" They skidded forward and fanned out. 6 of them took up an area across the diner, between him and the door. When the creature spoke, the mandibles had departed from the area. When the creature spoke, the mandibles had to part from the face to expose some flesh beneath. Billy Bob froze as he saw a hole the creature was speaking out of. It looked like an arsehole. He worked hard to keep his face straight and not burst out laughing as he quickly set his translator to refer to these creatures by some custom inputs. Punny ugly creature.
Puny, ugly creature.
Punny.
Puny, ugly creature.
I am Captain Arsehole of the Arsehole Empire.
You must read. You must tread carefully and face the wrath of the Arsefaces. This one behind you is our mortal enemy. My translator is telling me that you are showing mirth and amusement, the creature said, the last bit with confusion, as Billy Bob was laughing. He jabbed the weapon in his face. Stop that! You will rue the day you mock Captain Arseface. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Your translator isn't, set to my species properly. This is fear and terror. Really? It paused, unsure now. Hand over the diplomat. Look, I really hate to get dragged into crap I don't understand. My species is very new to the galactic political scene, so I don't see why this is my business anyway. He didn't like these creatures, but getting humanity into a war they didn't know about wouldn't be good for him on a personal level. Then the lady behind him whispered, I'll transfer 10 billion galactic credits to your personal account if you help me. He always wanted to be a hero. Billy Bob yanked the bottle of pepper sauce from his holster, smashed it across Captain Arsehole's face. The creatures were stunned by his speed, and Captain Arsehole began to scream in pain as the hot sauce burned him. Billy Bob took the still boiling pot of water, tossing it at another arsehole. Tossing it at another arseface, smacking it in the face as he leapt forward with all the speed of a high-gravity death welder. Trampling one of the creatures past the other 2 screaming arsefaces, he ripped the weapon from its hand, pushing a bunch of buttons before the swarm of little pink bolts slammed into another arseface. Then he smashed the weapon into the torso of the arseface he disarmed, cracking and splintering the exoskeleton as more goo escaped. Yes. When it's go time, go. The last 2 had leveled their weapons and then turned their injured. Comrade into a massive spatter of bits and pieces. But Billy Bob was already running away, rising up as he ripped a table from the ground and throwing it into the 5th arseface. The 6th was swinging his weapon, waiting for the computer to give him the firing plot, but Billy Bob was too fast. Picking up one of those stupid xeno-ergonomic chairs, he leapt, swinging it overhand and down into Arseface's face. There was a crack and a snap as it slumped to the ground. There were siren sounds in the station, as security had obviously detected violence. Cheese it, lady, I'm going to space. Cheese it, lady, I ain't going to space jail. What does that mean? Run for it, my ship's this way. He began to take long hops, sailing over the heads of the other startled and frightened creatures, running every which way. He turned to see how long he'd have to wait for her,
But to his surprise, the creature had spread her arms wide, the cloak flapping back. The cloak flapping back to reveal a set of feathery wings, with gossamer, dragonfly-like web between her long arms. She was literally flying.
Well, shit. This is going to be an interesting haul.
So began another chapter in the adventures of Billy Bob, Space Trucker. End of chapter. All hail Billy Bob. Hello? Must have accidentally clicked that. And it's probably when I was getting the chapter lengths. I am going to step away for a couple moments. I shall be right back. I leave you with music and chairs. All right, back. Chairs, however, messing with me. Got a blanket on here because when I first moved to this country, I bought the same chair I had in South Africa, which has a, what do you call it, mesh back and mesh bottom. Seat, not bottom, seat. So, which is great for summer when it's super hot, not so much winter. Yes, Billy Bob is definitely a classic for various reasons. You just have to play America Fuck Yeah on loop, and it's the soundtrack to the story. All good. Yeah, landlords can be like that. Nelly Bob. Nope, that's not how you spell Billy Bob. Not how you spell it. Yeah, there we go. Nope, nope. Fingers, listen when I speak to you. Billy Bob 2. All right. You will head over to the second one. The first three are a bit long, but compared to the others. And then we sort of ease back until about average of 15 minutes per chapter, which is great. Okay, move this over here. Hello, hello, hello. Greetings, ladies and metal gents, and welcome to this latest edition of RTFOS, where I take old stories I've narrated and update them to modern audio standards. This one is part of a series called Billy Bob, Space Trucker. If you are new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description, and as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 2. In the chaos, after the fight, Billy Bob had led his new cargo back to his ship and blasted off before security could figure out what had happened. When he had started up the airlock sequence, though, the lady nearly collapsed under the gravity, and he quickly set it to galactic standard and gave his apologies. He had to toss Mittens out of the co-pilot's seat. He had to toss Mittens out of the co-pilot's seat, letting the startled cat fly through the lower gravity while he strapped in and got his longhorn fired up, tearing off into the space lanes. Phew, that could have gone a lot worse, don't you think? As far as he was concerned, he was off scot-free. What he didn't know was that Captain Arsel had survived, back on the hunter-killer class disguised as an atlas. He was clutching his face while the doctor tended to his face wound. The mechanical arms of the computer aid moving to assist as the glass was removed and parts from parts of his face. Cast leader Bleebob, what happened? Cast leader Bleebob, what happened? The creature growled out and winced as his face was tended to by machine and comrade alike. The diplomat hired a Deathworld mercenary to assist her. She's more dangerous and cunning than we thought. I think she came here to meet him. We're trying to identify the ship's heading. Just look for a ship itself. Just look for the ship itself on a path to the capital. In the past, she was hard to track because she traveled alone. But now I think she'll stay with the Deathwilder. We must stop her from reaching the capital. If she does, the galaxy as we know it will end. Technician Grigg skittered into the room. Technician Grigg skittered into the room. We found the ship through the freight service. I forgot to close out the fake profile. We found the ship through the freight service. It forgot to close out the fake profile. It must have set up for being hired. We found the ship through the freight service. I forgot. We found it through the We found the ship through the freight service. It forgot to close out the fake profile. It must have set up for being hired. Excellent. What do we know? Men looking for a specifier. Men looking up the specification for the ship right now. But here's the personal info on that Deathworld mercenary. Bleebob read over the info, unsure how he was supposed to pronounce the name. It looked bizarre to him. The mechanical hands of the machine yanked another glass shard from his face as he roared out in pain and anger, screaming out nice and loud, "Mark my words, I will have my revenge on you, Billy Bob, Space Trucker." Billy Bob was smiling as he settled his longhorn into the FTL lane. "Whoa, 10 billion credits, serious, no fooling." He looked over at the diplomat. "Yes, my mission is very important. My people gave me a large sum of money to get to the capital."
10 billion credits?
Indeed.
10 billion?
Yes.
B with...
Yes.
10 billion with a B.
I think you're referencing letters. My translator is confused.
Ah, right.
He wrote out the number in galactic standard trade symbols on a napkin that he had in the cabin. She looked at it and nodded, which his translator told him was the same for her species as his.
Wow.
He leaned back in his seat, a big stupid grin on his face. "Yes, if I manage to get there, my device will end the galaxy as we know it."
10 billion?
In fact, that's why the Ourspace Empire is... In fact, it's why the Ourspace Empire is trying to stop me.
I'm going to be one of the richest people alive.
Many speculate about the horrors the device will cause, but my species knows that it will bring about a better galaxy.
10 fucking billion. I'm excited.
Finally, his brains registered that she'd been talking. Did he ask her to repeat herself? Nah, it was probably nothing important. She was just playing along with the... She was just playing along with his rambling. He couldn't shake the stupid grin off his face at the thought. What was he going to do with the money, besides buy himself a bigger ship? Wait. What if he spent all the money on the biggest possible ship he could buy? But then he'd need a crew. Crap. He pondered his impending wealth as she spoke up. As she spoke up, and he finally listened. "Excuse me, but this isn't heading towards the capital." He looked over his heading for a moment, thinking about the route in his head.
"Yeah, but I have cargo to drop off first."
"Wait, you intend to deliver your current cargo despite my contract?"
"We haven't signed anything formal yet, lady. What's your name?"
"Emily Earhart."
Billy Bob paused at that and looked over at her. "What?"
"That's my name."
"Seriously? I think my translator is approximating... I think my translator is approximating pronouns on me. Hold on."
Mentally, he told his implant to give him the text read out of what he was hearing. Mentally, he told his implant to give him the text read out of what was his... Mentally, he told his implant to give him a text readout of what he was hearing, and not override what he was hearing. Then he asked her to repeat her name. Emily Yikneff. The text in his vision read Emily Earhart. Quickly, he turned the translator back over to override his hearing center and looked surprised.
"That's kind of amazing. Your first name sounds like a human name. I'm guessing your last name is sort of like a 2 words mushed together."
With that, she nodded. "It is unusual, then. Most other species have very different names, stuff that's impossible to pronounce." With that, she nodded.
"It is unusual, then. Most other species have very different names, stuff that's impossible to pronounce."
He laughed at that. With that, she nodded. "It is unusual, then. Most other species have very different names. Stuff that's impossible to pronounce."
He laughed at that. "Shit right, lady, they do. Shit right, they do, lady. Well, nice to meet you, Emily. I'm Billy Bob."
She blinked at that for a moment, seeming a little confused. That's similar to a name used by the Arsefaces." That's similar to a name used by the Arsefaces." He chuckled for a moment at his translator, then glanced over.
"Wait, what? They also have human-sounding names?" And the term human meant for your species, or a specific clan?
Species. I'm from the American clan. The best fucking clan there is.
Well, then if your species all had the same names,
Well, okay, they're mostly like American names then, but it would like...
then if your species all had the same names,
Well, okay, they're mostly like American names then, but it would like... But it would be like if some Korean guy met an alien named Kim.
I know a Kim.
Shut the fuck up.
Did I say something wrong?
Sorry, exclamation of surprise.
Oh, my translator isn't totally set up for your species, it seems.
Duly noted.
Billy Bob nodded to himself for a moment, impressed and amazed to find out that other aliens had good names. He was tired of all the Z's and Q's and X's. They never seemed to pronounce X's like he felt X's should be pronounced. Crap, Xenos should totally be Xenos. Then he had a thought back. Then he had to backtrack on the conversation in his head since he realized they'd gotten off track at some point.
All right, I'm heading to a colony to finish my current contract, yes.
But this path on your nav... But this path on your nav... But this path on your Navi camp... But this path on your Navi comp... It puts us days off course.
Yeah, well, sorry, Emily, I've never been late to a delivery, let alone skip one, so I'll get you to the capital after this.
But I'm offering you 10 billion credits.
Yes, and I appreciate that, but I'm not changing my mind on this. I have a reputation, after all.
The diplomat leaned back in her seat and then shrugged it off. Honor code? He nodded at that.
Something along those lines.
I can respect that. Billy Bob was settled into the FTL lanes, moving along steadily with all the other traffic, sticking to the gates set up by the galactic government. Opposing traffic to your left, keep right. Just like the roads back home. Aside from those limeys, of course. But if he refused to use metric, or worse yet, space metric, then he would hold driving wrong against him. Then he wouldn't hold driving wrong against them. Couldn't pull that crap in an FTL lane, though. Hit someone going several times the speed of light. What would happen? A black hole? He wasn't sure and didn't intend to find out. He let out a sigh as he began to relax, figuring that they had another 2 space days of travel, and he better get back into his groove. The diplomat looked ready to speak up when he heard the crackle of FTL Proxband receiver. Breaker, breaker, big bomber, you get your ears on. This is Flying Snorlax 410. This is Flying Snorlax 410. Billy Bob looked over at the diplomat for a moment. Billy Bob looked over at the diplomat for a moment.
You're going to want to turn your translator off for this. It's just going to crash.
The hooded figure stared at him as he pulled up a Proxband mic.
That's a 410 flying for Snorlax. That's a 410 flying Snorlax. I've got my ears on. Didn't know anyone else was around these parts.
I heard you had a 99 out there. I'm Alice in Wonderland at the moment. My 01 is supposed to be ass past the gas factory. I'm Alice in Wonderland at the moment. My 01 is supposed to be ass past the gas factory, but everything I'm seeing is headed down Burrito Bog, or back up the armpit. Or back to the armpit.
Crap, Snorlax, you gotta hang at bugs at that turd bowl. Crap, you gotta hang the bugs. Crap, Snorlax, you gotta hang at bugs.
Hey, bugs, not at bugs.
Crap, Snorlax, you gotta hang a bugs at the turd bowl and throttle on down to double nickel and the local dirt roads. And throttled on down the double nickel. And throttle on down to double nickel on the local. And throttle on down to double nickel on the local dirt roads.
Shit, I've run out of big road.
Sure have.
All right, big bomber. All right, Big Mama. Hey, I sent you a packet of my recent turns. Got yours? Billy Bob tapped a few buttons on his console. Sent it over, good buddy. Right, well, I'm heading on out, good buddy. Need to find a turd ball and probably water the engines. 10-4. There was a beep as he received a packet of information and set his mic back down. Up-doot-de-doot while we pass it. When he finished, the diplomat was still staring at him. You're right. My translator crashed. Don't worry about it. There was some guy named Ted, friend of mine. He was lost trying to get to his first stop and heard I had a final stop out here somewhere. I gave him directions, and he sent me an info packet. What is in the packet? Turns. Good morning, Grailton. I hope you're doing well. Great Helen. Good morning, Great Helen. Too many reading weird names. And then Amankira. Welcome, welcome, welcome. What is in the packet? What is in the packet? Turns for a game we play over FTL procs called Space of Tycoons. Don't worry about it. He's a bit of an insane gamer in that respect. Plans out his moves way ahead. I really don't understand any of this. The figure shook her head. Space trucker stuff. It's basically a code, but more to keep things short than anything else. That was short? She asked, to his quick reply. To us. Once more she shook her head. So your species doesn't mind being alone in space? She asked him, as he gave a smile. Not at all. Kind of nice. A little boring, but that's a nice enough way to make a living. Go ahead. Make a living. Get to go to new places, look out across the void, and see some really gorgeous systems. To be honest, I thought our species was unique in this. All the crews I've seen need upwards of 50 bodies in order to feel comfortable. She nodded at that. It's not unique, just very rare. Something about being lonely in the void terrifies most species, or drives them insane quickly enough. But not yours either. She shook her head at that. No. We enjoy the solitude as much as company. Well, I'm new to the galactic scene, so you'll have to fill me in a bit on that sort of thing. Yes. I was wondering about that. Your species hasn't even sent their diplomatic... I was wondering about that. Your species hasn't even sent their diplomats out this far, but you, space truckers, are flying beyond anything else in order to deliver supplies to other people's colonies. Yeah, sure. They don't like us. They don't like it, since they want to present a nice sculptured picture of what humans are. But most humans are going to be like me, just a hard-working sort of making a living. Just a hard-working sort making a living. So that is normal? She asked and pointed at his gut. She asked and pointed at his gut. He set a hand on it and felt a little self-conscious for a moment. Then he smiled. Sure is. We store food and fat for an... Sure. When in doubt, lie. Then he smiled. Sure is. We store food and fat in an internal pouch. The mark of a healthy male is to have some bulk in his area to show we're all fed and strong. If we're missing one, then either we're malnourished or worse. Worse? Yeah. Some humans have this rare disease where part of their brain is filled with regular meat. We call them meatheads. They work out too much and get really well-defined muscles. It's unhealthy and self-destructing, but they're still accepted in society because they can't help it if they have a disease. Billy Bob hoped that she was using a free translation. Billy Bob. Good morning, Dave. Hope you're doing well. Billy Bob hoped that she was using the freemium translator that didn't inform her that he was lying through his teeth. Fascinating. Damn, he was good. So you were selected for the job. Through a caste system? No. We get to choose for ourselves after mandatory government service after high school or college, depending on how far we get. How far did you get? 2 years in a community college, then enlisted. Tested well on physical aptitude and mechanical aptitude, very well on isolation. They made me a fighter bomber pilot, which is technically an officer, but an officer of the lowest rank who can't actually boss anyone around since the flight crews are watched by the deck officer. There was another pause. What's a fighter bomber? He grinned at that. She might be from a species that doesn't mind being alone in space, but it sounded like humans were still the only one crazy. But it sounded like humans were still the only crazy and But it sounded like humans were still the only crazy bastards who had figured that out. Well, looks like I've got some explaining to do. Betty Bob began to explain to her his training back on Earth. After early testing, they taught him how to sail a boat, and then told him to sail across the Pacific on his own. A month later, he made it back. A month later, he made it to Bangkok, and a week after that, he made it to Australia, where he was supposed to head in the first place. Then they dropped him off on the dark side of the moon, gave him a lead, gave him a heading and supplies. 2 days later, he made it to the designated base, and his flight training began. Even among humans who didn't mind being alone, it took a special breed to be okay with being truly and entirely alone. That concept, even on habited worlds. That concept, even on a habited planet, freaked most xenos out. Some humans could be alone in the void and just smile at the nothingness around them. Most species couldn't fathom the thought. They were raised on millions of years of herd or pack mentality. Humans had been hunters, and while they achieved great things together, they were happy being spread out. It was also why their population was low compared to other species. Some people needed to live in the suburbs, some needed to live in the country, and there were plenty who needed to live so far from the nearest other person that if there was an emergency, they fixed it themselves or just died. Well, you can do both. Both. Have Billy Bob in one ear and accidentally adopted in the other. Died. He told her about humanity's early days and the First Contact War. How they had been found, not by the galactic government, but an aggressive species of space beetles. Humans had never bothered to learn their names. The space beetles struck first in aggression, seeing they had a better tech. The humans scrambled to defend their 2 extrasolar colonies in Sol, while sending off small bombers equipped with jump drives and a massive collection of nukes humans had while sending off small bombers equipped with jump drives and the massive collection of nukes humans still had. They knew nothing about FTL lanes or the bigger galactic government. Their scientists had devised a way to sort of skip through space, traveling through, something else. He didn't know what, and they didn't cover that in community college. So they'd hop along through deep space for weeks, or months at a time, and then show up and to glass a bug planet. In the end, most of the space beetle fleet was intact, but all of their planets were dead when they surrendered. The fact that we had destroyed every single one of their planets was a surprise to the human leaders, who assumed the beetles had far more systems, or would have surrendered earlier. Instead of trying to make amends, they instead tricked the bugs into a meeting spot. They instead tricked the bugs to a meeting spot on an already dead world. Then we showed up, blasted their entire fleet, and knocked the planet into a star in the hopes that no one ever found out we killed an entire species without learning a damn thing about them. Sort of like when a kid breaks something while the parents are out, and instead of admitting it, tries to make it look like it was a thing that was never there at all. Somehow, everyone forgot how that never works. Somehow, everyone forgot how that never works. The first contact with the greater galactic government had been a fleet of warships congratulating us on our first victory in an interstellar war. And then they told us that if we ever wiped out our species again, they would wipe us out. Strict, but fair. From then on out, it was just border skirmishes which were allowed.
Humans had strength and determination, but they always lacked numbers. Numbers counted for a lot. So the government started new programs to give tax breaks and benefits to people who had as many kids as possible, and then moved somewhere other than Earth. Cheers, Dave. I hope you enjoy. And see you soon. He was about to go on, but at this point, the conversation He was about to go on, but at this point in the conversation, he did something he was used to doing when he was alone. The problem with being a solo trucker was he forgot to watch himself around company. What was that noise? What? That strange noise? She asked. Oh, I was off-gassing. Your species has gas sacs? Species has... Sort of. There was an awkward pause before the smell reached her. Oh, deity. What the smell? What is that smell? Methane, I think. The diplomat made a few gagging sounds, waving 3 of her hands in front of her face as she got up and retreated to the back of the cabin, while his face took on a nice shade of red. Oh! Oh, I can still smell it. It's not that bad. It smells like a native creature died and rotted in the sun. died and rotted in the sun for days. She stepped into the bathroom as the door sealed shut, and he heard the hum of the vent. Well, I guess story time is over for now. He reached forward and turned the music on, trying to drown out the sounds of a distressed diplomat in the bathroom. And so ends another chapter in the adventures of Billy Bob, Space Trucker. End. End of chapter. Good night, Bombarding Blood. Thank you for popping past. It's very much appreciated, and I hope you have a awesome sleeps. With dreams of all the stuff that you wish to dream of. We seem to have surged up to 17 people on YouTube, 3 people on Twitch. Welcome, welcome. Yeah. Walking biological warfare machine. You can see the author is now sort of settling into a style. The author. Regal, legal, eagle. Eagle, legal, regal. Yeah. Space ass. Remember, we put space in front of all the human stuff. So he's space hauling ass, or hauling space ass, or hauling ass space. It is very much appreciated, Bombardic. I'm not being glib or anything. Every bit helps, and in this economy where attention is pulled in every which way, spending some of your attention with me is appreciated. Space ass faces. We need to put space in front of everything. It's like pinkies up, except, space. My wife has got to be editing this and being like, this is the stupidest thing ever. Why are we doing this? It's got to be glorious. Alrighty, are we ready for the next chapter? Wait, actually, before the next chapter, we need to do something. Ah, yes. Boomer juice. Sorry, space boomer juice. Yes, that's perfect. Perfect laser comment. And even then, Bombardic, that helps as well. My wife does that. I can't. It drives me up the wall. Listening to stuff while I fall asleep just does not work for me, but it works for my wife. So I do get that. Ooh. Just giving the voice a couple minutes break before we head into the next chapter. It is such an off-the-wall story. It kind of reminds me of like Spaceballs and that sort of stuff. Just ridiculous. And my problem is if there's like somebody talking, my brain focuses on what's happening and then just does not want to switch off. Even if it's something I've seen or heard before. So, my brain just... So, my wife goes to bed a couple hours before me. She has whatever she has on. And then when I go to bed, I just turn everything off. And lie in bed and then just hope that sleep finds me. It's like playing the worst kind of hide and seek imaginable. Well, okay, not the worst kind of imagine, but you know what I mean. This monster is fighting back. Because of course it is. Alright. Alright, chapter 1. 2, 3, 3. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. Billy Bob, Space Trucker's latest chapter. Fair enough, Bombardic, fair enough. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of ReTFOS, where I take old stories I've narrated and update into modern audio standards. This particular one is an old series called Billy Bob Space Trucker. If you're new to the series, there is a... If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description, and as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 3. Diplomat Emily, please respond. Still locked in the bathroom, the diplomat tapped on her belt, quickly sealing the room in a soundproof barrier. This is Diplomat Emily. What do you need, Overwatch? Have you escaped from the station? Affirmative. I've taken up refuge with another Death Welder. He hauls cargo and seems to have high endurance and low curiosity. He's perfect for this mission.
Is there a chance he's working for the galactic government? None. His species is strange and brand new. From what he's told me, I think they're on a watch list of potential military threats. They have some very interesting tactics.
Excellent.
Excellent. We must make diplomatic contact with them and see if we can exploit their status. What are they called? They refer to themselves as humans. If possible, seek out the American clan specifically. If he is any indication of their behavior, they're just... If he is in any indication of their behavior, they're just what we need.
Do you need us to replenish your accounts?
No. I've offered him 10 billion credits upon arrival at the capital, and that is more than enough to buy his loyalty, it seems. They seem to find contracts as soul-binding.
Very interesting. Well, very interesting. We'll look into his death welder. Very interesting. We'll look into this death welder with more care while you travel. Who is he?
The diplomat glanced towards The diplomat glanced to where she knew Billy Bob was sitting in his cabin. Perhaps the savior or destroyer of the known galaxy if everything went according to her plan. His name is Billy Bob, Space Trucker. In the cabin, Billy Bob had the sound system turned up as he hummed and tapped the controls with the song.
Oh, excuse me.
Give me a job, give me security. Of course, he was singing along, but couldn't hold the tune to save his life. Emily soon opened the bathroom and returned to the main cabin. But with the music so loud as it was, he had no idea that she was behind him.
Gotta be a blue-collar man.
There. He was shouting more than singing at the end while playing an invisible set of drums as hard as possibly could. When it was over, he heard the cough from behind him and nearly jumped out of his seat.
Jesus, don't sneak up on a guy like that.
He quickly turned the music off as Emily took a seat in the co-pilot chair once more. Is that some sort of cast war song? She asked as she looked over at him.
What? No, sort of. Look, we don't have casts. We choose our own jobs and people can have... We don't have casts. We choose our own jobs and people can move from one job sector to another. It's just an awesome song and part of my a group industry. I don't know the right term for it.
So what is blue collar?
Means that you work a job with a high physical demand, mostly. Long hours, crampy conditions, stuff like that. But don't let that fool you. Plenty of us are intelligent and cultured just fine. We just like having our life be a bit simpler. I come from California, for example, which is mostly known for hippies and yuppies, and artsy-fartsy types. But most of the state is common folk like me. Work hard, drink beer, that sort of thing. I never really bought into the other image of my home, aside from becoming the captain of a dance team. That laugh is because I know what's happening next, well, down the line. I never really bought into the other image of my home. Aside from becoming a Aside from becoming a captain of a dance team at school, I fronted all over the style. I fronted all over the style of the guppy crabber. I fronted all over the style of those guppy shits. Step up on my turf and you better bring it, or else I'm going to serve you just as hard as you might well got an F and the A. Emily was quiet as she stared at him.
You lost me completely halfway through.
Yes.
He waved a hand at that.
Never mind, not important. So what's up with the Arseface guys?
The who?
Those space crabs who were trying to kill you when we met.
He waved a hand, since he couldn't be bothered to check his translator for the actual name. Now that he had their custom input sets. Oh, the Arsefaces. They are from my home system. They evolved on a nearby planet. My people and theirs have been enemies since our early spacefaring age. But since we were both evolved for our own death worlds, our struggles have been in our other systems. But since we both evolved for our own death worlds, our struggles have been on other systems since our homes are useless to each other.
Wait, you're a death welder.
Wait, you're a death wielder. They were too. They kind of pretty easy for death, eh? They kind of died pretty easy for death wielders.
You have to remember, Billy Bob, that we evolved on standard gravity worlds, not your high gravity one. They are perfectly adapted for their planet, I assure you, as I am for mine.
With that, she reached up, finally pulling back the hood, revealing some sort of fabric that had covered her face, which Billy Bob had mistook for shadows. He gasped as she revealed a sleek-looking head covered in soft white down, with a pointed muzzle that had a few sharp teeth exposed, and one eye on each side of her pointed face. She looked like a bald eagle, and he'd seen her fly. A space eagle, that's awesome! He quickly got up from his chair, rushing back to the fridge in the cabin, and returning with a can of beer, and handed it to her while she looked confused. Here, just say, I am the embodiment of freedom and liberty, and I love America. Emily looked at the metal can being held in one of her hands, and back up at Billy Bob.
I am the embodiment of freedom and liberty, and I love America.
Fuck yeah! He gave her 2 thumbs up while grinning like a maniac.
What's in the can?
Beer. What's in the can? Beer.
You said that before. It doesn't translate.
It's a carbonated alcohol, He was about to go on when she popped the tab and then bit the side of the can in order to suck the beer out without them. And then bit the side of the can in order to suck the beer out with surprising speed. He stood there, wide-eyed and open-mouthed before she finished the beer and slammed the empty can against her forehead to crush it. Fuck yeah! Mittens jumped behind him at the sudden yell, but Billy Bob wasn't paying attention to his cat at this moment. You are awesome, lady. You're the best fucking diplomat I've ever met in my life. How did you know how to do that?
My people consume alcohol like that in a ritualistic fashion. It's to show trust that you aren't giving us a lethal dose of alcohol. I like the carbonation, though. That's new. What's it for?
Helps you get drunk faster. He smiled and lifted a hand, open palmed in the air in front of him. Nothing happened. Then he pointed his palm up. Hit my palm with your palm. Then he pointed his palm up. Open palmed in the air in front of him. Nothing happened. Then he pointed to his open palm. Hit my palm with your palm. There was a pause before Emily reached up with one of her hands and tapped it against him. Harder! She repeated the motion with more force this time. That's a high enough. That's a high five. We do that to show excitement and joy.
Interesting. Why?
I don't know. He was too excited to be anything other than loud and enthusiastic at this point. When she pointed behind him at Mittens, he picked up his startled cat before she could say anything. This is Mittens. That's his name. He's a cat, specifically a Martian marauder. Cats are animals of varying sizes on my home planet. They're fuzzy, and if you pet them, they purr. They show affection by harming. They show affection by harming you just a little. They eat meat. He gave the creature a firm belly rub as it squirmed and then tossed it back onto his bed. The cat looked like it had been greatly distressed. Yes. I'm remembering how ridiculous this is, and it's truly awesome. Back onto his bed. The cat looked at it. The cat looked like it had been gravely disgraced and began to clean its fur.
Why are you so excited?
Because you're awesome! All of these damn Xenos I meet have crappy names and crappy customs and crappy attitudes about crap. But you look like a bald eagle, you shotgun beer like a pro, and have a goddamn name. And have a good goddamn name. Emily looked slightly to moderately confused, but nodded slowly, as he seemed far too excited over this. Well, sorry if I'm a little too eager and loud, lady. Just never met such an awesome Xeno before. Still grinning like an idiot, he got back into his seat to check that they hadn't drifted off course or anything life-threatening.
Well then, I guess we're off to...
Probably. We'll see. We'll see.
Well, then I guess we're off to a good start. Then I guess we're off to start.
We're off to the start of a good friendship.
Well, then I guess we're off to the start of a good friendship, Billy Bob.
Fuck yeah, we are.
So, how long do you drive in between breaks? We've been moving at about 3 hours. Do you require time to rest or sleep?
Not just yet. After eating, I'll go about 6 hours before eating again, roughly. Then I'll sleep about 3 hours after that, roughly. How about your species?
I should take a nap soon then, and wake up when you're ready to eat. Do you have other bedding? She looked back at the single bunk further back in the cabin, where Mittens was performing some yoga as he licked himself. Can I, move him?
Yeah, just boot the fuzz butt off to...
Move him?
Yeah, just boot the fuzz butt to the ground.
Emily moved back towards the bunk, and Mittens looked up at her. She looked back. Then they engaged in a staring contest. Unblinking Space Eagle against unblinking Cat. The test confrontation behind him was lost on Billy Bob, as he brought out some headphones so that he could listen to music while she took a nap.
Working man time.
Then started... The staring contest behind him finally ended as Mittens spoke first, and Emily tossed him off the bed in victory. The cat huffed and quickly climbed up onto Billy Bob's lap for consolation, petting. The cat huffed and quickly climbed up onto Billy Bob's lap for consolation petting, while the trucker bobbed his head to the tune and kept their ship from drifting into any other ships traveling through the FTL lane. It hardly seemed like 3 hours when Billy Bob felt something tap his shoulder, and he jumped up, sending Mittens flying through the lower gravity cabin and up onto the dash. "All right." He pulled off his headphones as Emily stared at him. "Sleep well?" "I'm a little surprised. You drove for 3 hours more without... I'm a little surprised. You drove for 3 hours more without any real company."
"Yeah, sure, no problem at all. I once had to drive a double about 30... Yes, I once had to drive a double about 30 arses out of my way to avoid some local smokies and make it up with my 99 on time."
"Okay."
I once had to drive a double about 30 asses out of my way to avoid some local smokies and make it to my 99 on time. No sweat.
He paused as he saw Emily's blank stare.
"I drove all day to make a detour around space cops."
"See? How is that not easier to say than what you said before?"
"It's a space trucker thing. Want to get something to eat?"
The Space Eagle shrugged, and he turned back to his console, picking the annoyed Mittens up and setting him on his lap so that he could start spinning down the engines and pull out of the space lane to get the refuel. And pull out of the space lane to get a refueling station.
"Hey, how common are the spacefaring death warders anyway? I was thinking about it while you were sleeping."
"We are fairly uncommon, but not too unique, and most are highly adapted to one specific climate. Your species seems to be fairly resilient and adaptable, however."
"Yeah, that's humans for you."
He pulled his longhorn out of the FTL and brought it in to dock amongst the multitude of larger Xeno ships. His looked lost amongst the Atlas-class cargo trawlers, and more specific local variants, but he really didn't care. Emily pulled her hood back up and followed him out into the station. Just like at the other, he followed the flow of the crew to the center, towards the restaurants and entertainment venues. Unlike last time, it seemed like far more of the crews were eating whatever meal their internal clocks told them to eat. Unlike last time, it seemed like far more of the crews were eating whatever meal their internal clocks told them it was. Unlike last time, it seemed like far more of the crews were eating whatever meal their internal clocks told them it was. but he had no problem shouldering crowds aside to find a place that looked like it had food that he could eat. The issue came when he pushed past a group of green space geckos with bug eyes. Space gecko flies. Space gecko flies? Space flaccos? Hey, you ugly native creature to a legitimate son. Hey, you ugly native creature's illegitimate son. Watch where you're going. You're dealing with a squad of space flacco. Rangers, you know. He sure was glad that he was so quick with his translator functions in his implant. Otherwise, he might have to learn some of these Xenos' names.
Listen, Sparky, I was just walking through to find a place to eat.
He turned to walk away, but the creature snapped its fingers and 10 of the flaccos spread out. Then some sort of awful synth music. Then some sort of awful synth Xeno music began to play as Billy Bob groaned. A floating orb began to change colors above them as they started to perform what he supposed was a dance. It was one of those races, apparently. They performed their dance as the Xenos around him spread out to give them space. He could hear the oohs and ahs as they showed off their physical prowess. But he was tired of it. He grabbed the floating orb as they looked confused, then he turned it over to find the input port. Pulling out the Galactic Standard USB, he plugged it in and selected a song in his implant. Blame it on my roots. I showed up in the boots.
Combat initiated. Combat type dance.
In his implant. Blame it on my boots. I showed up in boots. Blame it on my roots. I showed up in boots. He began to line dance to the I've got friends in low places as the Xenos around him were shocked. A single creature dancing back to a squad of Flacco Rangers. He had no idea what Flaccos were, but everyone was shocked. His poise, his grace, his hands tucked into his belt. It was like he didn't need them for balance. Sheer madness. By the end of the song, the crowd was silent. He pulled his USB out of the floating orb and hurled it into the ground, smashing it before very firmly holding his raised middle finger in front of the Flecko leader. In case your translator is having trouble with my body language, that's how my species says, don't feck with me. Turning, he began to walk away as the crowd parted before him.
Come on, Emily, let's eat.
He found a decently busy, but still open restaurant and picked one of the Xeno chairs that wasn't too off before too far off before snapping it in half and stacking the halves so that he could sit on it like a regular chair. The staff looked over at him, but none said anything. Once the server came over, he had already thought over what he wanted.
I want a hamburger and some fries.
The server today looked like the same sort of six-armed space frog he dealt with last time. Maybe they were the Mexicans of the sector. Or something like that.
A what? With what?
I want meat grilled on top of some bread with potatoes that have been fried in oil on the side. Add in some of that space pickles and space onions and we're set. All right, space meat on space bread and fried space potatoes. Make that up for me.
The creature looked hesitant, but Emily seemed amused.
I'll have some too.
She slid a small black box across the table, and the creature quickly retreated to the kitchen.
You don't mind eating meat in front of herbivores?
Ah, fuck no. Fuck no. Not my fault I need some damn protein.
She made a chattering noise that sounded something like a bird call, which his translator informed him was laughter. He smiled back at his new friend. It took about 15 minutes before the space frog returned with 2 plates. What he brought out was a mess, and it looked like they'd combined 2 different meats, one burnt and the other bloody, and slapped it on some purple and green-looking space rye bread. There was sliced orange something. Space carrots? Well, they were orange, but they looked more like orange space onions. The fried lumps looked like space... Good morning, James. How you doing? Orange space onions.
The fried lumps looked like blue space potatoes with white stripes, which was fine. No sign of pickles. Good enough, he grunted, and the server quickly retreated once more. The other customers began to move away from them, obviously sickened by the sight and smell of meat, but they didn't mind. He was about to try his food when he saw the space fleckers walking in, another floating ball above their heads. Oh, feck. Feck, guys, I'm trying to eat here. Feck, guys, I'm trying to eat you. I'll serve you again once I'm done. They brandished knives and bats. Shit. Got angry and fronted... shit. Got angry I fronted all over your style, huh?
You have insulted, You have insulted some dumb flecker in the ancient art of dance-off. I will not tolerate your barbaric dance. You will pay.
They advanced as he looked at Emily. Is self-defense allowed here?
Of course.
He nodded at that and stood up, walking towards the advancing fleckers. The patrons were fleeing at this point, while he stood in front of them. Not a fan of Garth Brooks. The leader screamed and charged, slamming the bat into his stomach. Billy Bob grunted softly, and then ripped the bat from the creature's hands. It was about the size of a Little League bat. He turned it over in his hands, testing its weight, as the flecko suddenly looked nervous. Then he grabbed the floating ball and plugged his USB back in and chose another song. Everywhere I hear the sound of marching, charging feet, boys. Everywhere I hear the sound of marching, charging feet, boy. He swung the bat into the flecko's head as teeth and xenoblood came flying out, and the creature went flying. While the Rolling Stones played, he kicked another flecko in the chest and waded into the group of them. They were no match for the high-gravity Death Worlder. They were nimble and spry, but that didn't do any good against an angry space trucker with a bat, even if it was a Little League-sized. He could twist away from their knives and clock them with the fist, or the bat if he felt like it was... He could twist away from their knives and clock them with the fist, or a bat if he felt like it, on his way... Or a bat if he felt like it was on his way. Or a bat if he felt like it on his way by. Or a bat if he felt like it on his way by. They tried to stumble past and regroup to attack him all at once, but that just meant that it was easier for him to catch 2 or 3 with a single swing of the bat. Billy Bob had been in plenty of fights growing up, and even more since he became a space trucker. He had no problems using his mass to advantage. He had no problems using his mass to his advantage. As times he simply shoved fleckos to the ground before jabbing them. He had no problems using his mass to advantage. As at times he simply shoved a flecko to the ground before jabbing it in the face with the end of the bat, or even picking one up and slamming his face into the fleckos. It was a tactic that worked very well for him. Finally, the song was ending and he mopped up. Just one flecko still conscious as he picked it up and threw it out the front window. Or so he thought. Instead, what he thought was a window shimmered, and it flew straight through. What the feck? There isn't glass in that window.
No, just a holographic display, Emily told him.
So he cursed and picked up the bottle that from So he cursed and picked up a bottle from a table that hadn't been destroyed. The flanker was surprised, but started to get up until he threw the bottle out the same window and into the thing's face. The glass shattered, and he grinned before sitting down as sirens sounded throughout the station. He sat down at his food with a smile. Nice way to work up an appetite. Just explained to the cops I was defending myself. Simple little brawl, nothing big. Emily stared at him from her shadowed hood and said,
Those were local soldiers. The cops are probably bringing reinforcements. When I said self-defense was allowed, I didn't mean in the sense that they'll allow... When I said self-defense was allowed, I didn't mean in the same way. When I said self-defense was allowed, I didn't mean in the same way. When I said self-defense was allowed, I didn't mean in the sense they'll let you kill... Ah. When I said self-defense was allowed, I didn't mean in the sense that they'll let you almost kill a squad of special forces. Billy Bob quickly grabbed the food and began to run out the door. Get your meal. We're having takeout tonight. The diplomat sighed and grabbed her food as well, rushing to catch up with the fleeing space trucker as they escaped yet another refueling station. And so ends another chapter in the life of Billy Bob, Space Trucker. Up-doot-de-doot. Up-doot-de-doot.
Stretch.
Clickety-clack, clickety-clack.
Oh, yeah. And this story was written before a lot of the tropes were actually in place. Because this is 11 years ago. So basically near the beginning of the subreddit. It's like Regal Legal Eagle looked at J-Verse Death Wielders and said, hold my beer. Yep. If you know, you know. Anyways, on to the next chapter. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Read TVOS, where I take old stories I've narrated and update them to modern audio standards. This particular story is called Billy Bob and is part of a series. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description. Ugh. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 4. The squad of Galactic Police arrived at the restaurant with armored support in the form of exosuit-wearing Greslins. Sergeant Tavish blinked at the sight of the unconscious Phyllis outside the palace. Someone had knocked out Phyllis. They were tough. Then, when he stepped inside, he muttered in shock at the sight of no less than a full squad of them strewn about the place. He checked their IDs and noted that they were indeed registered as Galactic Special Forces. They were known for their intimidating battle dance and vicious close combat tactics, something that laid them out. Perhaps Perhaps a Vikesh ambush, rival Phyllis squad maybe. The place was empty, since the clients and staff had all run away the moment the fight started. He didn't blame them. This place must have been filled with combatants. Technician Kavanaugh, find the security footage. We need to know if we're dealing with a full attack or just an isolated incident. The Greslins in the exosuits in their exosuits spread out through the station, computers scanning for targets in case they were attacked.
The technician connected to the security terminal behind the counter and began to play back the video. Sergeant, you need to see this. Tavish walked over. Tavish walked closer, extending his hand to plug the port into the back of Kavanagh's suit so that he could see what the technician was looking at. What am I looking at? Just a scene of a restaurant. What am I looking at? It's just a scene of a restaurant. A red box formed around an ugly-looking biped in some rather barbaric-looking clothes. Just watch him, the tech said. The sergeant frowned for a moment. That thing? Why? Does he call over some more of its kind? He watched the fellas enter, their feared battle ball hovering above them. The ugly one got up and then... Tavish was silent with shock as he watched the security footage. He grew silent once more. His mouth hung agape. His mouth hung open within his sealed exosuit. Then he saw the figure pick up a bottle and hit the Phyllis outside with it. He didn't have a computer aiming aid. How did he do that? It was dead on target, and the force of the throw. No creature could throw something like that so accurately without the assistance of a computer and decades of training. Finally, he noticed the other figure as the two of them ran off with the food. Captain, zoom in on that one. What is it, sir? Tavish gulped nervously. Few know that target. Tavish gulped. Few know that figure. Those are Death Wielders who might possibly be the greatest threat to the galactic government we've ever known. And that's a diplomat, with a new Death Wielder. By deity responsible for the dead, we need to inform the capital at once. What can you tell me about the ugly one? The technician was already printing out what he could find on the docking manifest. Sir, from what I've been told, that ugly barbarian is known as Billy Bob, Space Trucker. Billy Bob and Emily were eating their meals as he got the Longhorn back into FTL lane, so that he could get out of the area before the local smokies caught up. Isn't that bad? Emily was saying as she snapped a Emily was saying as she snapped up pieces of space meat on a spread on space bread and had a few nibbles of the space veggies. Billy Bob had to agree with her as she nodded. The two different kinds of meat were a little odd. It was sort of like having a tri-tip on top of... It was sort of like having a tri-tip on top of pork, but overall, not bad. The fried space potatoes were hot and a little bit too big, but otherwise not bad.
It's hard to get good meat,
he said as he chewed on the makeshift space burger, and then finally swallowed as he nodded his head back to the fridge.
Hey, can you see if you have any more beer in there?
Emily extended her neck a little as she swallowed and then shook her head swiftly for a moment, much like he pictured a bird might. Nah, it is wise to Is it wise to consume alcohol and drive?
You shotgunned a whole can and you're fine.
She looked thoughtful for a moment and then rose out of her seat and walked back to check the fridge. Two of her hands pulled the door open while the other two held her meal. Just one. And something called Juice Springsteen. And something called Juice Springsteen?
Billy Bob nodded at that. Yeah, the drink for the bravery man. Just bring that and you can have the beer.
He heard the crack of a can, followed by the crinkle of aluminium as she bit it. He shook his head slowly as he thought about just how fecking cool it was to be traveling with a fecking Space Eagle as a passenger. And one who shotguns beer like a fecking pro. She walked back up to front, handing him a can in one hand, and while the other three handled the beer and food. She sat back down as he cracked open the Juice Springsteen and gave it a long slurp.
How come you drink in small doses like that?
How come you drink in small doses like that? He glanced over and shrugged while balancing the space burger on his lap.
I don't have a mouth shaped like yours. It's more difficult to do what you do.
She shrugged at that for a moment. I like these cans your species uses. It makes it very efficient to consume liquid. He chuckled softly at that and shrugged. Tell me, Billy Bob, Are you aware of less than legal markets? It seems to me like you could use some supplies, and since you enjoy meat, the standard galactic refueling stations won't really have what you want.
That caught his interest as he looked over at her. There are species who have markets with meat. From what I've seen, we're the only ones who deal in it, openly at least.
Emily nodded at that. The only ones who do it openly. The space goblins set up stations. The space goblins set up stations here and there to deal supplies to those who know where to find them.
Space goblins! I love those guys. They always seem like the sort of Xenos I want to get to know, but they're so hard to get a read on. I guess they have to warm up to us as a species.
Emily actually looked surprised. You've seen them already? I thought your species was brand new.
We are? I've seen a few back in our home territory. Good drinking buddies. Funny stories. Good with blowing shit up. Funny stories. Good with blowing shit up.
My translator picked up on the word you used.
My translator picked up on the word you used, so it must be the same species.
Well, they normally won't deal with the species until they're well connected. So they must see something special in you humans.
A good deal, probably. So, is there one of those stations nearby?
Emily nodded at that and tapped on his console as she showed him on the FTL lane map where he would need to go. It was about 12 hours along the same lane, so they'd make it in there. So they'd make it there the next day.
Well, it's on the way to... Well, it's on the way to Ina 3.
What's that?
The planet I'm delivering the supplies to.
Right. So, is this what... So, it's this what you do... Right. So, is this what you do for your job? You just drive and talk and sleep and eat and drive.
Yep. There's also music and going to the bathroom and stuff. Unloading cargo, loading new cargo, arguing with people who hide me, like shit like that.
Does your pet not need to relieve itself? I don't see any special equipment for...
Oh, Mittens. He goes in the space toilet.
What? Is he intelligent?
Just enough to do that. I once downloaded a translator app from some... I once downloaded a translator app from CNET that let me understand cats. Virtually everything translates to feed me or pet me, aside from when he's really content and says that I'm a good slave. Didn't like that too much, so I uninstalled it and talked to him like he's a stupid baby.
I see.
Do you read much? Only my American Bible. What's that? Let's finish eating before I get the book out. Don't want to stain it.
She nodded at that, and they ate the remainder of it. She nodded at that, and they ate the remainder of their meals. Finally, Billy Bob wiped his hands off on his shirt and tossed the plate over his shoulder and into a trash can without looking. Then he reached into the compartment near his feet and pulled out a leather-bound book that had hundreds of little colored tabs on its side that had hundreds of little colored tabs on the side that he'd placed on certain entries.
Volume 3 is what you're going to want to read. 1 and 2 are also important, but that's the one that really gets the heart of being an American.
Is it a religious text?
Yes and no. It's complicated. Being American is sort of like... Being American is sort of about transcending traditional religion. We think everyone is free to believe what they want in that sense. In fact, as our Bible states, it is a solemn duty of every American to spread free religion everywhere. If we see two people arguing about what religion is best, we kick the shit out of them until they behave, because really, all religions pale in comparison to being American. So they can believe whatever they want and shut the fuck up about it.
Emily nodded slowly as she tried to process what he was telling her while looking at the book. But it's also a religion?
Well, sure, we believe in Jesus since he was such a great guy. That's in Volume 2. We used to believe that he was the Son of God. Just kind of grew. But kind of grew out of that and just believed that he was an early peaceful American and got killed because everyone was jealous about how awesome he was. Then his spirit was reincarnated in the Founding Fathers, only with violence added in, because being peaceful sure as shit didn't work for him the first time. What? Just start reading. See, about 100 years before contact, we had a bunch of shitheads with religious extremist ideas around the world. There was this one guy in charge of a religion called the Pope. This guy was awesome, sort of like the original peaceful Jesus. Told people to get along and be nice and stop being dickheads. But of course, dickheads didn't like that, and they killed him. Real dumb feck move, of course. Cause the peaceful people got all pissed off. Everything went to crap. Then this guy in America realized that we needed to really do something about this crap once and for all. Emily began to open the book and read portions of it as Billy Bob kept talking. So we made the new American deism. Like the Founding Fathers. It's in Volume 3. So we stopped worrying about our own religions because we realized our religion is to be American. You can still be American in a different religion, but you're American first. Like American Jew or American Satanist. Those guys can party. Crappy roommates, though, anyway. We went on a big old crusade to kill everyone who wouldn't allow free religion and settled shit real quick. Then we helped form a world government, but wouldn't join it because ours was better anyway. That made Emily look over with confusion.
Wait, your clan helped form the first unified government on your planet, and then didn't join it?
Yeah, it might have been okay for everyone else, but not us.
But you made it.
Billy Bob shrugged. It's hard to explain to non-Americans. If you visit Earth for a while, you'll get it. Mostly it was because no one was willing to spend as much on defense as we were anyway.
Boop-a-dee-boop-boop.
Stupid phone. Defense as we were. Mostly it was because no one was willing to spend as much on defense as we were anyway.
Your one clan outspent the rest of the world on defense.
Billy Bob grinned wide at that. Yep, that's how awesome we are.
She shook her head, then as she pulled out the tabs.
Oh, those are awesome bits I always like. Read 'em out loud.
Emily hesitated, and she looked at the print on the page and spoke up. And yea, verily, did the glorious first president, George Washington, in all his glory and splendor, did deliver unto the face of the wicked King George, who might have been the same name, but was totally shitty George in comparison, a wicked right hook, and lay him out flat.
Billy Bob was nodding as she Billy Bob was nodding as she read that. Fuck yeah, he did. That man was so awesome we named our capital after him. A state and a whole day. He's on our money, and we made him a monument to show that he had the biggest dick of them all. He's on our money, and we made him a monument to show that he had the biggest dick of them all.
He was a lifetime ruler?
No, that's how awesome he was. Feck, I love reading about him and the other founding fathers. The second president was pretty boss too. His cousin brewed beer, so I'm sure there was some serious parties in the White House while he was in office.
Emily was shaking her head as she continued to read the American Bible in her lap. There's a section here dedicated to how to properly give people high fives and thumbs up.
Oh yeah, proper etiquette for all Americans.
They spent the next several hours with Billy Bob explaining to her more about the American Bible and how his clan behaved. She seemed dubious, but his emphatic nature made it clear that he was being serious and honest with her. But finally they were both growing tired, and he had to pull off the FTL lane to make sure that they didn't get in any accidents. Checking the map, he made sure that they were well away from any nearby system before pulling out of FTL lane before pulling out of the FTL lane in deep space. Emily was a little surprised as he spun down the engines and left the Longhorn out in the void. The blur of the FTL lane was behind them as he faced the cabin at the endless nothing in front of you.
Well, you should be able to backtrack and then double time.
Nothing in front of
America, fuck yeah.
the blur of the FTL.
This is a story that expands upon the America Feck Yeah song.
Haldane was behind them. The blur of the FTL lane was behind them as he faced the cabin at the endless nothing in front of them. He really don't get bothered by this sort of thing. I don't mind traveling in small groups or alone, but to be out here in the void, we're light years from anywhere. He smiled and shrugged. I kind of like it. It's just us and all those stars out there. It's kind of neat to think the only lights can be seen on likely dead stars. Humans sort of thrive with this. I don't know about the others, but when I pull off the FTL lane and set up to sleep for a while, I like to stare out into the nothingness. Sometimes I'll get in my spacesuit and just boost into the blackness and sit there. Sometimes I think I see something out in the void and smile. Sometimes I think I see something out there in the void, smile. That made Emily shudder for a moment. What do? I smiled back. Emily stared at Betty Bob for a moment, then gulped. But he just smiled at her. Here, let me show you how my headphones work. You'll be up for a while, I think, since our sleep cycles aren't the same. He showed her the music system and set up a playlist for her, starting with the dark side of the moon. When she offered him the bed, he quickly turned it down. Sorry, but a real American will always let the lady have the nicest spot to sleep. I'll just sleep in my chair. I do it all the time. He tucked his American flag and human flag hat down over his eyes, leaned his chair back, and settled in. Emily looked from the Bible in her lap over to Billy Bob. She couldn't believe these humans, or these Americans specifically. If what he said was true, then when humans learned the truth about the galactic government, they'd start a crusade that would set the galaxy on fire. They wouldn't stop until everyone was free or dead. They were perfect. End of chapter. Oh, I don't need to do that. What I do need to do is up-doot-de-doot. Okay. Oh. Not a problem, lazy. Not a problem. Always sucks when the internet starts to play up. Big stretch. Yeah, I've heard of the Australian internet. It's just boggles the mind, shall we say. Alrighty, on to the next chapter. Greetings, ladies and melodians, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. Oh, excuse me.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Read TFOS, where I take old stories I've narrated and update into modern audio standards. This particular story is called Billy Bob Space Trucker and is a series of 34 chapters. This particular story is called Billy Bob Space Trucker and is part of a series, which has its own playlist listed down below. Anyways, on to the story. Excuse me. Chapter 5. Humans were a paranoid lot after their first contact with the xeno species involved the fight for survival. And it didn't help that for all actions the Unified Government, or UHG, took to persuade the Galactic Government, humans weren't all that bad American. Chapter 5. Chapter 5. Humans were a paranoid lot after their first contact with the xeno species involved the fight for survival. And it didn't help that for all the actions of the Unified Human Government, or the UHG, took to persuade the Galactic Government humans weren't all that bad, the Americans surged ahead with defense spending and espionage. Of course, in a way that worked to everyone's advantage. The UHG got to say truthfully they had no control over the Americans, who rampantly provoked xenos on their borders, and spied on everyone they possibly could, while then giving what they gained or learned to the UHG. Since spacefaring species all had one government, the Xenos simply assumed Americans were some sort of subspecies and treated each government as entirely separate entities. Fair enough. There used to be when I worked in IT, best time was 3 o'clock in the morning, 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock. One such espionage programs the Americans had going took advantage of the fact humans didn't mind being out in the void of deep space. They had taken up major contracts with other Xenos to repair and construct new They had taken up major contracts with other Xenos to repair and construct new FTL comm buoys, and even some of the Galactic Government comm lines. Since no one else was willing to go out and physically inspect the buoys in deep space, they didn't notice the new attachments the American crews left behind. Small robotic operators would monitor all the Xeno traffic and copy it off back to Intel stations. With every passing year, the network got larger as Xenos mistook the human fanaticism for repairing and updating comms buoys for their desire to prove themselves as a spacefaring species. At one of those Intel stations, however, a tech was sipping a cup of coffee when he noticed a flashing light on his console. Bringing it up, the communications packet sent to him by the spy operator designated IHC, his eyebrows quickly shot up. "Sir," he called. Greeting. He called, waving over his superior. Specialist Rebecca Jones moved over and leaned over to see what her tech had found. "I'm not sure how credible this is, but someone is setting up an open bounty on a human. They also appear to be sending military orders to naval vessels." "Do we know much about the species?" "Some sort of space crabs, sir." She nodded as she read over the information on the screen. "Find out where their species is. I'll contact Langley and have them prep a carrier fleet. If they prove hostile, we'll glass a few cities and see how they feel about that." "Yes, sir. What should I do about the endangered human? Is he American? I'll have to do some digging, but it sounds like he's a space trucker, so there's a very good chance he is." That's not good, friendly. It's not good at all. As long as nobody got hurt. By the sounds of things, they stopped it before anybody could get inconvenienced by flooding. But it does suck. So there's a very good chance he is. Excuse me. You excused me. She nodded at that and thought it over. "I'm sure he can handle himself then, if he's a space trucker. But I'll see about getting some agents to track him down and see if he's getting us involved in a war."
To take him out? Heck no. If a lone American pisses off some Xenos so much they declare war on us, that makes them into the agreement. To take him out? To take him out? Heck no. If a lone American pisses off some Xenos so much they declare war on us, that makes them the aggressors. Galactic law clearly states that defenders have free reign in combat against aggressors, so long as we don't engage in mass genocide. If they have any valuable resources, we can take the planets and toss them over to the UHG. Another flashing light made the tank tap on his console once more. Sir, it seems another Xenospecies is trying to find out where our main diplomatic center is, so they can send some officials for negotiations. What? Where are they sending the communications? To UHG Central? No, sir. They're trying to contact Washington directly. Apparently they're interested in an alliance after meeting with some guy named Billy Bob, Space Trucker. Emily couldn't believe the varied and intense music that Billy Bob had her listen to while he slept through his own rest cycle. From what she understood, this was all pre-contact music. How had one species developed so many varied genres, all on their own? Most species had one or two styles that carried across their music, but the only style that she could find that connected human music was their love for repetitive beats or choruses in song. That, and most of their music seemed to be war chants and combat songs. But that might just be Billy Bob's music. The first record she had listened to, written by someone named Floyd of Pink, had been especially haunting and beautiful. When Billy Bob had finally started to stir, she realized that she'd skipped her second sleep cycle just to listen to more music.
Yeah. I actually need to make a mental note of that. That would be awesome.
Music. The first record she had listened to. No, to more music. Her body was a little sore from the lack of rest at this point, and she needed some time to just process the music that she'd been enthralled by. So when he woke up, she began. So when he woke up, she began to move back to the bunk. I'm going to have to sleep this first chunk of driving, Billy Bob. You know where to go? The trucker pulled his hand back into place and nodded. Getting up, he walked back through the cabin and found Mittens, quickly hopped. Getting up, he quickly walked back through the cabin and... Somebody turned my light on.
It's great. Too much light. Too much light.
He quickly walked... Getting up, he walked back through the cabin and found Mittens quickly hopping off the bunk before Emily could toss him off, and followed along behind the trucker. Sure.
Yes, the light, it burns.
Sure, but I need to work out for a bit. Keeping the cabin set to galactic static gravity for you kind of loosens my muscles a bit too much. She nodded as he quickly pulled a can of cat food from the cupboard, popping the lid before slapping the meat puck onto the plate for Mittens. Then walked back to the main cargo hold of the ship. Crates lining the walls stacked all the way to the ceiling, filled with supplies for the agri-colony that he had to take to them. Cranking up the gravity to Earth's norms, he tapped on the console on the side to get some music going. All right, calisthenics and then weightlifting, he said with a nod. Rising up, back on the streets, his face was set as he began to run up the length of the Longhorn's cargo bay, starting his workout. In the end, he spent a full hour running, jumping jacks, push-ups, crunches, lifting crates, pull-ups, everything he could think of with what he had in the cargo bay. Billy Bob was no stranger to fights, and it seemed like his new friend was going to get him into more than normal, so he needed to work out a bit more to prepare for it. He might have a decent-sized beer gut, but he was a blue-collar man after all. Under the fat was muscle.
His arms were still strong, even if he didn't work out to bodybuilder levels. He didn't even... Good morning, Kandaria. Hope you're doing well. He didn't need to get some sort of scientific gym workout. He just needed good old-fashioned exercise, and to keep punching things in the face. Once he was done with the sweating pretty good. Once he was done, he was sweating pretty good, and figured it was time for a shower. Careful not to make too much noise walking through the cabin, he slipped into the bathroom and started up the shower. Once he was cleaning up, he had to remind himself not to sing like he usually did. Didn't need Emily groggily waking up to an off-key Tom Petty or similar. Then, clean and dry, he got dressed again and got the Longhorn fired back up before moving back into the FTL lane. The prospect of an illegal space goblin market excited him. Maybe he'd get real meat. Well, space meat. The burger, Space Burger, the day before had reminded him how much better the real stuff was compared to protein mush. He picked up his headphones, setting them in place as Mittens hopped up onto the co-pilot seat. You excited for some real meat, Mittens? Maybe you buy... I am doing as well as can be, Kandaria. Maybe buy you some space rats to hunt in the cargo bay. He reached over and gave the cat's head a few rubs, and then turned on his music. He couldn't sing Tom Petty in the shower, but it was good too. He couldn't sing Tom Petty on his music. He couldn't sing Tom Petty in the shower, but this was good too. She was an American girl. When Emily got up, she booted Mittens from the co-pilot seat and enjoyed more music with Bitty Bob. He had to explain that the British invasion wasn't actually an invasion. American musicians were the great, but they didn't have... But that didn't mean that other nations couldn't create some amazing artists, too. She was confused how Americans seemed to be friendly with the British after the Revolution, and he explained to her that it was a bit like father and son who hated each other and got into fights. The dad had been a big and mean, and his kid grew up in his shadow. But over time, the dad got older and weaker, and his kid got bigger and stronger, and just as mean. So they managed to connect again as friends, instead of enemies, thanks to their mutual hatred of various things. Like one of those sappy movies, sort of. After another several hours of that, she took another nap before they arrived at the station. When she got up the second time, they were almost at it. The space goblins had set up the station in the shadow of some sort of dead moon in a creepy-looking system that had a number of dead rock planets and white dwarf in the center. Okay.
Okay, you're going to have to be careful here. These sorts of stations attract all sorts of death wielders, even ones who can give you trouble. I should be able to talk us in.
He shook his head at that. Oh, no, I know these sorts of places. You're my guest, and you aren't talking us in anywhere. I've got this. The station didn't look like the basic refueling stations. Instead, the ships had the dock along the same face of the station, and there wasn't a cargo hauler to be seen. These were sleek, purpose-built vessels of war, smaller-scale capital ships and pirated patrol crafts. Smaller-scale capital ships and pirated patrol crafts. His longhorn stuck out like a sore's thumb. But then again, it did that around cargo ships too. Human ships in general just didn't fit in. Once he was docked, it was time to change. He opened up his security locker and began to dress more appropriately for the job at hand. He kept the jeans and the plaid shirt, but lost the cowboy boots in favor of steel-toed ones. The hot sauce holster came off and his regular holster came on. He tucked his M1911 into the holster and tucked 6 extra magazines into the pockets around his holster. After that, he pulled on a black combat vest that was a mix of ceramic and Kevlar plating. Then he slung on a Remington Tactical 2070 over his shoulder before filling the combat vest pockets with various slugs, buckshot, and birdshot rounds. A few dragon breath rounds as well, in the off chance that he'd need them.
Finally, he tucked on a Bowie. He tucked a Bowie into his left boot with another in his blah 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 blah. A few Dragon's Breath rounds as well, in the off chance that he'd need them. Finally, he tucked a Bowie into his left boot and another in his and another in his belt. Pulling his Remington off of his back, he loaded a few rounds and then worked the pump with every satisfying Bowie. A few Dragon's Breath rounds as well. Always called it a Bowie knife, but Bowie knife is fine. A few Dragon's Breath rounds as well, in the off chance that he'd need them. Finally, he tucked a Bowie into his left boot and another into his belt. Pulling his Remington off his back, he loaded a few rounds and then worked the pump with the very sights of Pulling his Remington off his back, he loaded a few rounds and then worked the pump with a very satisfying ka-chunk. Lock and load. Emily was about to talk when he quickly slung the Remington back over his shoulder. No, wait, hold on. He then pulled free of the locker a wooden Louisville slugger with the words MLB Prime Ash burnt into the side, and replaced his hat with a camo one with just the American flag on it. All right, I'm ready. His Louisville had a few scratches and some stains from previous use, but he wouldn't trade it for the world. Any world.
What are those things? She asked, pointing at his M11 and Remington.
Oh, I forgot these aren't common. So, you know how the galactic government has strict laws against weapon possession and stuff? Well, they don't have very strict laws regarding ceremonial cultural items. They also don't have a concept of firearms. All you Xenos have been using energy weapons and crap for centuries. Not humans. These are what we call guns. They house these little casings filled with chemicals that fire off once we pull the trigger. It causes a small controlled explosion that launches a chunk of metal a few hundred feet a second. The action ejects the casing and pushes up a new one with this gun. He patted with his M1911. But this one requires me to work the pump. You'll see if I ever need to use them. You'll see if I ever need to use them. Emily's mouth hung open as he explained to her what he was using.
You've covered yourself in explosives?
Well, they're made to not go off until I want them to, but yes.
How do you control such weapons? You don't have a targeting computer in your eye. Those are tightly restricted.
Feck, humans don't need them. I guess we're lucky enough to evolve with the concept of tracking depth and movement or shit. I don't know, physics? You saw me hit the space fleckle yesterday with a bottle. Because America, basically. Although I suppose pump-action shotguns were made as trench guns, so they'd work well as a boarding gun, I would imagine. She paused and then gave a shrug.
I guess I'll trust you.
He grinned at her and then moved to the airlock. Hopefully you won't need to use them.
Hopefully you won't need to use them.
He looked back at her and thought it over. Actually, it might be more fun if I need to. He smiled wide as the airlock cycled, and he stepped out into the station. Unlike the clean, well-lit refueling centers he was used to, this place had those stupid fucking flickering lights from horror movies. He glared up at the ceiling for a moment. He hated those stupid fucking flickering lights. There were stains here and there on the walls as he walked towards the entrance to the main station, and couldn't help but grin as he saw 5 figures manning some sort of security station. Those looked like blue space orc bears with horns and longer tails.
But really, with the underbite. But really, with those underbites and big features, the guts, he figured they were more like space bouncers. Then again, space borks. He nodded. Yeah, space borks. They had an assortment of weapons and targeting computers over their faces, which meant the space goblins here had to be connected. However, from what he could see, they were wearing just normal clothes, with those shield belt type things. Lazy Xenos always figuring weapons were energy-based. The one in front looked bored as he stepped up, holding up a hand as he grunted at Billy Bob. "Stop right there, ugly. We don't know you," and he didn't get any further than that. Billy Bob just picked up the space. Billy Bob just picked up the pace to a jog and swung as he moved. The bat collided with the fat, ugly head, snapping off a tusk as it sounded like it creamed. As it sounded like he'd just creamed a line drive past third base. As the rest began to perk up, it was pretty much too late. Billy Bob was already up close. The second one he slammed in the side with a knee. The second one he slammed in the side of the knee. There was a sickening crack as the creature howled and toppled like a falling tree. The third he jabbed in the face with the end of the bat, crunching the targeting computer into its 4 eyes. It cried out and clutched its face while he moved on. The fourth had been stupid enough to leave his weapon on a crate, and as he reached for it, Billy Bob brought his steel-toed boot up in the space bork's hand. As it squealed and looked at him in terror, Billy Bob brought the bat down on its head. Good night. The last finally heard the high-pitched tone of a weapon lock and growled out as he prepared to fire. But Billy Bob was faster. He pulled the knife from his belt, tossing it at the bork's arm, sinking the blade into the creature's shoulder. It howled and dropped the weapon, dripping blue blood as it gulped in terror. Billy Bob slowly approached as it gulped out. "But why are you here?"
Oh, excuse me.
Yes. Yes, he did. They said hello, and he replied with a bat. Billy Bob stepped up to the larger creature and yanked the blade free, wiping it off on the bork's fur before slipping it back into his belt. Then he held the bat in one hand, resting it over his shoulder. "Us, we came to bar. We came... Us. Us. We came to party. Now take me to your leader." End of chapter. Unfortunately, that is going to have to wait any more revelations until next week. Oh, because that is the 5 chapters down, 30-ish to go. But I think we'll do more Billy Bob on Sunday. Yes, more boomages. But anyway, we will continue on with Billy Bob next Sunday. Well, this Sunday, 2 days from now. Tomorrow is my day off. Get to rest my voice a little bit. Good morning, Caveman. Unfortunately, you chose a very bad time to pop in, because I'm going to be popping out. Well, we've been going for 2 hours, 40 minutes. Thereabouts. Many much stretches.
Don't worry, it's nothing you said. It's just an inopportune time that you stepped in. Okay, that is going to be me for the day. Thank you all for staying, watching, listening, chatting, and all the good stuff. It is very much appreciated. I will see you all not tomorrow, on Sunday. I hope you all have a fantastic Friday and Saturday. Cheers.